Hello and welcome to Really Cool People, a podcast produced by Schweitzer Church. I'm your host, Jason Leininger. This is a place to hear stories of really cool people. The hope is that you and I listen, we will be inspired, encouraged, and challenged through moments of serendipity. In a sermon entitled The Weight of Glory, C.S. Lewis said, "There are no ordinary people. You and I have never talked to a mere mortal." It's my joy over the next few moments to introduce you to somebody who may seem rather ordinary from their own perspective, but yet they are a really cool person. Today, we're going to meet Bill Cloven. I met Bill several years ago when I moved to Springfield and started to work at Schweitzer. He worked in the food pantry, but there's so much more to Bill that you're going to hear about today. He grew up in Cotter, Arkansas. He met his wife in the first grade. They got married at the age of 18 and moved to Springfield. You'll hear his deep affection for his wife and kids, for Schweitzer Church that meant so much to him. And he'll also share that what he's looking forward to at this age that he is, the age of 90. So, it's my privilege, joy, and honor to introduce you to Bill Cloven. Today on Really Cool People, we are glad to welcome Bill Cloven. Bill, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Good. Let's start with your story.
Well, my name is Bill Cloven. I was born 90 years ago in Cotter, Arkansas, and lived there till I was 18. Moved to Springfield in 1952. And my wife is Joyce Cloven. She was from Cotter, and I've known her I was together with her 74 years. But we went through school together, so I've known her and her family forever. And I've got 2 kids, a boy and a girl. I've got 6 grandkids and 8 grandkids, 8 great-grandkids. All of them have gone through Schweitzer. All the grandkids, 7 of the great-grandkids haven't. But the 8th one is going to be baptized next Sunday. So it's been a Schweitzer family. We have, I come to Springfield, went to work in 52, worked for the same company for 34 years. They went bankrupt. And I went to Mid-America Dairy at the Springfield Underground Distribution Center. And I worked there for 13 years, and I retired in 1999. Since then, I've been at Schweitzer as in the pantry. We had disaster relief to start with. And that run for about 5 years. And then we opened up the food pantry 23 years ago. And that's how long I've been working it. I have picked up and distributed food to about probably 8 or 10 places in Springfield, besides all the other ones. Ed Hewlett was I was his helper. We went all over the state of Missouri delivering food, from Dexter, Missouri to Columbia, Missouri, St. Louis, and all of the towns around Springfield. At one time, we had probably 20 different places we were distributing to. And this has been the biggest part of my life, except my family. But I started in Schweitzer in the old house in 1960. I got to attend 2 services in the old house, and they opened up the chapel. And since then, it's been in the chapel or sanctuary. What? I've had 7 tours on trustees. I've been on 5 building committees. And so I've seen everything since the chapel started. My family have all been involved in the church. In 1966, West Arrington come to Springfield, and at that time, we started working with the junior MYF. And West Virginia now was working with the seniors. We had quite a relation with all of the instructors or counselors. And altogether was 5 couples of us that every Sunday night we would work with the MYF. And then it got to the point where it was a family thing. All of them would get together. We got together once a month and celebrated birthdays and anniversaries and stuff. And when it was all over, there were 6 couples of us. And the thing is now, most of them are gone. So it's pretty hard to live with by yourself, but the church is here. I retired out of the pantry the last time in 25th of January this year when I was 90. But I still come up and eat with them on Tuesday. And it's a great church. They do, if people just knew how much went on with different things.
Uh-huh.
But all the kids enjoyed going here. And it's hard to leave a church like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it has been a great 65 years.
You want to go talk about your childhood? Can we talk about that for a little bit?
What?
Can we talk about your childhood, where you grew up?
Oh, yeah. I grew up in Cotter, Arkansas, which is a railroad town, and it's on the White River, made a horseshoe bend around town. And back in those days, population about 2,700 until they started using diesels. And after they started using diesels, it took care of a lot of the population of Cotter. And then they built Bull Shoals Dam, which is 11 miles above Cotter on the White River. And it brought a few people back, but not many.
What do you mean by the diesels pretty much took care of Cotter?
Well, you don't need all the mechanics and stuff that you have on steam engines.
Okay.
They had a roundhouse there and everything. And on a diesel, you just put diesel in it and take it off.
Yeah.
So it cut the population probably by half.
Really?
When they dieselized. Yeah. And then also there between Cotter and Crane, Missouri, there were 4 tunnels. And when Union Pacific bought the Missouri Pacific out, they couldn't use them because they couldn't run double-stack trains through those tunnels. But we spent most of our time on the river in the summertime, swimming or hunting in the wintertime. But with 2,700 people, you knew everybody in town. And at that time, you didn't have the problems you've got now. That was a dry county and no drugs. So it was, if somebody got in trouble, you knew it wasn't that.
Uh-huh.
So it was a good growing up.
Did you have a movie house?
We had movies, and we was 11 miles from Mountain Home, and they had 2 theaters. And, well, if you're going to do something, you went to Mountain Home, the theater over there.
Mountain Home, Arkansas.
Right.
Okay.
Now, it was a town that everybody knew everybody. And you could, all the kids, if they wanted to work in the summer, there was places for them to work. Because I worked every summer. I worked the ice plant, the lumber yard, the wholesale grocery company, and guiding on the river.
What did they pay you to work all those jobs?
40 cents an hour.
Was that minimum wage or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was back before minimum wage, actually.
Okay.
And, well, you thought you'd be getting rich. But it was a great town. Nobody had no big problems. And had 5 churches. In fact, I went to a Methodist church. Well, I started going to a Baptist church, which was just a block from my house. And I didn't want to stay for church. And every Sunday, after Sunday school, this lady would chew me out for not going to church. So the boy I run around with, his dad, taught Sunday school class at the Methodist church. So that's where I started going. And of course, Joyce's family went to Methodist church, so we had that worked out real good.
Were you and Joyce the same age?
No, she's a year older than I was.
And did you meet at church? Did you meet at school? Did you meet?
Oh, I met at school because we was in the first and second grade was in the same room, same teacher. In fact, the same teacher my dad had. And that's where I met her at, so I had known her ever since I was in the first grade. And we celebrated 71 years, or 70 years of marriage just before she passed away. So actually we had 71 or 70 and a half.
Yeah.
And then we went together 3 years in high school, so that made us 74 years.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 18 in January and got married in April. My dad had to sign for me. But we've been planning on it for 3 years, so her folks was fine with it.
Yeah.
And mine was, no problem. And it was just a great town, great life.
Do you remember your first date with Joyce?
Yep. Missouri Pacific Railroad down there had a booster club. And it was in September, the year I was 15. They had a dance at the gym at school, a square dance. And that was the first date I had with her. And that started it. We got along real good together because we never went to bed, it was bad.
Huh. Do you have any other marriage advice? Like 71 years and knowing one another from first grade? That's like...
I just listening to them.
Okay.
And you can figure out what they're talking about and go from there.
Okay.
But you don't want to, just like on the house, whatever she wanted, you talk to over and see if you can afford it and stuff like that. It's a two-way operation.
Yes, it is. You were born in
1934.
1934. So 18, you got married and moved to Springfield.
Yeah.
What propelled you to move to Springfield?
My grandparents lived here. He worked in surface heavy here. And I spent the summers up here probably within 4 or 5 years. When I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I'd go up here and spend the summer with them. So I knew Springfield, one end to the other, pretty well, and that's the reason we moved up here. And I went to work for Channel 66, which I had an uncle working for them. And I worked for them for 34 years.
Did you or Joyce ever have the notion that you wanted to go back to Cotter?
Yes, we didn't. we went down there. First year was married, her dad was sick, and we go down every weekend to see about him. And neither one of us wanted to go back. It was okay to go back for the weekend. My parents lived there, her parents lived there. So it was just a nice place to go visit, and you had the river and all this stuff. So it very nice.
One of the questions I sometimes ask, and I know your daughter wants to hear this question. So what was life like as a fourth grader?
It was good. The main thing I remember is not good. We had a teacher named Smith that was a very good teacher. The principal of school come in one day and took her out. And pretty soon they brought another teacher in. Her husband had been killed in the Philippines in World War II.
Huh.
And that was about one of the things I remember. I remember December the 7th, 1941, because the boy that I run around with lived just over, next block over, and we was always playing Army. And when they bombed Pearl Harbor, of course, there was no TV. You had to hear it on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going up the street to the highway where there's a stop sign. And we went up there, stopped, and waiting for the Japanese to come down the highway. But it was always in the summertime, it was great. The wintertime wasn't bad. It wasn't that cold down there.
Thanks for sharing that. I know that's a hard story to share and about your teacher. And how did that impact your town? How did that impact your childhood?
He was from Cotter. His dad worked for the railroad. And it made a big difference. I know we lost 3 or 4 service people in World War II. One of the boys I run around with, his older brother, was a paratrooper in the Army. And he hung up in a tree on the Battle of Bulge. And that's where he got it at.
Huh.
And they buried him in Holland. They never did bring him back. But it always affected you. Because it was somebody you knew.
Uh-huh. Did you ever go in the service?
I spent 2 years in the regular Army, 2 years in the active reserve, and 2 years in the inactive. It was one of the best 2 years I ever had. I got drafted, went to Camp Chaffee at Fort Smith, Arkansas, for basic and school. When I got out of school, I kept waiting for orders. And they finally come down. Sacramento Signal Depot, Sacramento, California. So I loaded Joyce up in the car and we went to Sacramento. And was there 21 months and never had any more fun in her life than we did there. There was 2 other couples that we run around with. We all 3 worked in the theater. And it was something else. But Joyce always said that was the best 21 months that we ever had.
What did the Army think of you being married and taking your wife out there?
Well, I asked everybody that come through Fort Smith, have you ever been to Sacramento? Finally hit her no boy said, oh yeah, I just come through there. I said, well, what's it like? Well, there's no barracks there. And he said, there's 2 companies and 5,000 civilians. And so I loaded the car up and we went. Well, I got an apartment. And when I reported in, the first sergeant, he talked to me. And I heard him go in and talk to the CO. He said, Cloven's reporting in. Said he's got an apartment. And I heard the CEO say he's taking a hell of a lot for granted, isn't he? I thought, I'm in trouble now. That first sergeant we had, when I got out, I was a company clerk. I was working nights at Camel. Joyce woke me up one afternoon and said, Sergeant Singer's here. I thought, well, what do I do now? And he was taking a bus, Army bus, to Tobyhanna, Pennsylvania, the signal depot up there. So we visited for a while. And then after we moved out here, he come through with his wife and we visited a while. But it was a good group. Nobody had any problems, but it was actually a civilian operation. And there was a depot company and a maintenance company and a headquarters company there. And the funny part about it was we pulled in at Sacramento and we pulled up a restaurant and we're looking at the menu up above. Well, we decided we didn't want anything there. So I started the car up, and old boy pecked on my window. He said, I see you're from Missouri. I said, yeah, Springfield. He said, we're from Joplin. They can't get enough money to get back home. And second week I was out there, they said, well, we're going to have full field inspection up on the depot grounds. So we set everything up. I was standing there at attention. The colonel walked by and he looked down and said, Cloven. I said, yes, sir. He said, are you from Colorado, Arkansas? I said, yes, sir. He said, I need to talk to you about that later. And I never did talk to him about it because he didn't call. But I knew his sister and his mom and dad, but he had left before I was old enough to know him.
Wow.
But it was a good life. And of course, there were some bad things. We lost twin boys at birth in 1955. And we lost a 6-week-old son in 63. But we made it through it with Bill O'Quinn's service on the boy, the last one. And I think it made us stronger.
Did you name your boys?
Yeah. The first twins was Ricky and Randy. And the other one was John Evans.
Were your other kids born around their time?
Well, Bill was born in 58. Kathy was born in 61. And he was born in 63. In fact, John we lost. Joyce had taken Kathy up to get her Easter shoes. And they'd taken him across the street because the lady over there kept him all the time anyway, just for the heck of it. And they went in to wake him up, and he turned over on his side, and he had already gone. And the doctor said it was the infant death syndrome. But this is something that we didn't blame it on either one.
How old were the twins when they passed away?
Probably about 7.5, 8 months. They were at birth.
Okay.
One was born dead, and the other lived about 8 hours.
How did you manage that grief, that sorrow? How did Joyce manage it?
She done real good. We just didn't blame the other one. And it was hard.
Yeah, it's hard, Bill.
The last one, John, when he died, the lady that was keeping him was divorced, and it hurt her.
Huh.
But she went to nurse's training and spent the rest of her life on the cardiac ward at Cox Hospital, night shift.
Your kids, as the two that lived past infancy,
yeah.
what are some of your memories that you have with them?
Oh, lots of them. But we've...
What's your favorite to tell?
Oh, I don't know whether there's any favorite to tell or not. When the kids was all home and younger, all the couple we run around with had kids. Well, one of them was Ken Bernard,
Mm-hmm.
and Dan and his two brothers. We was together a couple of times a week, plus Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be hard to say any particular story because there were so many of them.
I think you do have one story, though, or at least some folks have a story with your connection to your Schweitzer history.
Oh, you got a couple of hours?
No.
No.
We don't have that long, but...
We started out in an old house. I was working Sundays at Campbell, and I got to attend 2 services in the old house before we moved into sanctuary, or the chapel. And Bill O'Quinn was the preacher here at that time. And you got to know Bill O'Quinn, because if he wanted something done, he'd tell you. We had a tree right there in front of the east door on the chapel. He came up one day, and I didn't really know him that well because I hadn't been here that long. He said, "I want you to build me a planter box around that tree with a seat on top." I said, "Yes, sir." And so I done it. It worked out okay. And it just kept going like that. And the chapel was built in 60. The education building was built in 64, which was a 2-story concrete block building. Well, we started going to the home builders class when they opened that building up because we had the kitchen, it was our area. And one thing about it, you got to know Bill O'Quinn. But we had a Christmas party there one night, and Rachel, Lisa, and Bob Carmack was the teachers. And Quinn was invited. And they asked Bill, said, did you ever play submarine? He said, no. He said, well, take your coat off. So Bill took his coat off, they put it over his head and held one sleeve up and turned the end of it down. And they was talking to him, and he said, pretty soon, he dumped a pitcher of water down his sleeve. And, we sprung a leak. And he wasn't too happy after that. But it was, back in those days, everybody, well, just like an education building, when they built it, we painted it all inside, just the members of the church. And the only thing we let Bill do was stir up the paint. And then after that, the Cather building was built in 1971, and that's when they changed things. They tore down the old house in 1971, and after I started picking up over at AG for pantry, there was a boy over there said, my dad worked for Hope Construction when they built the Cather building. He says, we tore the house down. And so we hauled 4 big white columns down to the farm. And said, we got them down there. Said, one of them had a beehive in it. Said, that was the best honey you ever saw. But all that, I'm going to have a great-granddaughter baptized next Sunday, or christened. And both the kids, 6 grandkids, and that'll make 1 great-grandkid that's been baptized as Schweitzer.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And today is my day to see her.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned beforehand, you talked about how you worked for the same company for 34 years.
Yes.
And then they went bankrupt?
Well, yes, they did. Actually, it was a motor carrier, and in 1980, Ronald Reagan deregulated the motor carrier industry. He abolished ICC. Well, before, all the rates had to be published, and you couldn't undercut them. So it was a government-controlled rates, actually. And after they abolished ICC, the non-union carriers went into business. And if you notice FedEx, which is one of the largest now in the world, they bought out at Gerson Motor Freight out of Harrison, Arkansas. And that's what happened to it.
Okay.
Right now, there's probably a half a dozen carriers that was really prominent back before 1980, and all the rest of them's gone under. Roadway, CF, Yellow, Camel 66, JTL, all of them.
Were you a driver? Or?
No, I started out working on the dock and then got into management. The last 18 years, I was terminal manager. We had a Springfield terminal. We had probably 250 employees. And it's the home office, too, so it did make a difference.
What was your favorite thing that you got to do there?
Oh, it'd be hard to say, since I'd done everything. I worked 8 years as an operations manager, and then 18 years as terminal manager. And we had lots of meetings and stuff where you went here or there or all over. Had contests on the most improved rates or revenue. And I got to go to Colorado Springs 2 years play golf out there at the Kissing Camel Country Club, which was Lamar Hunt's daughter was operating it for her dad.
Oh, the Kansas City Chief connection all the way out in Colorado Springs.
Right. And we done that 2 years in a row. And of course, we'd take our wives with us. And they would have stuff for them to do in the day. And it was great.
And then you went to work for a dairy?
Yeah. Actually, it was Mid-America Dairy, which made infant formula, Infamil. And it was produced over on West Tampa and sent out to the Springfield Underground and warehoused. And we probably had, 2 or 3 million cases of it out there that would ship. But they was manufactured over in West Tampa, and they bring out about 6 truckloads a day. And we also get stuff in for El Dorado Springs, which was a Mid-Am operation, and Midland, Michigan, which is a Meade Johnson operation. But I was there till 99. 25th January 99, I retired. And Mid-Am had their people working there. Well, in 93, they put the labor contract out, and there's another company bid it. Well, I went to work for the other company as project manager, and it started out being Bix, Rust Engineering, Waste Management, and Pinnacle. So in 6 years, I worked for 5 or 6 different companies and never changed desk.
Oh, man. You've said now a couple different times that in January you like to retire. When you retire from MMA in January, then you said about volunteering at the food pantry, you retired this last year, January.
Yeah, well, when I turned 85, I retired from driving the truck because I figured, well, if I have an accident, whether it's my fault or not, they're going to blame it to church. So I quit driving the truck at 85, and I worked the unloading bins and stuff till this year for 5 more years. And then I just retired completely except coming for lunch and arguing with Jim Mason and all of them. You got to keep on your toes.
Yes, you do. Do you like retirement?
Well, no, not really. My daughter comes by every afternoon. She works here at the preschool, and she comes by at 3:30, and usually spends an hour with me a day. And the rest of the time, you're by yourself. So if you don't want to be by yourself, you got to do something else.
So what do you do by yourself? What do you do when you're by yourself?
Oh, I watch TV a little, play solitaire, read, work in the garden, work in the yard, things like that.
What do you like to read?
Books. No, I had read 500 or something books from the time I retired at the Springfield Underground. And when it got to the point where they wasn't interested anymore, so during the pandemic, I quit. And I've tried to start again since then. I can read about 3 or 4 chapters. And if I ever lay the book down, that's it. I never pick it back up.
Did you have a favorite author?
Oh, Yeah, there's 3 or 4 of them. I like John Stanford and Grisham and 2 or 3 good ones. I was trying to think. There's one author that he wrote about the Brooklyn Bridge, and it was you could just see the thing as you was reading it.
Do you like fiction or nonfiction?
Nonfiction.
Okay.
Or fiction, excuse me.
Yeah.
Both. But there's 1 or 2 authors that write that is about the nonfiction, but most of it isn't. The reason I like John Sanford is because my son is in Iowa, and I've been up there on along these roads up in Iowa, and he'll be writing, in fact, about so-and-so done this, and they went down through Iowa, all these towns that you know about, and then come to Springfield, Missouri. So it's just something to do.
Are you a sports fan?
What?
Are you a sports fan?
Not that much.
You watch the Chiefs?
Yeah.
Royals or Cardinals?
Neither one.
Hockey?
No. I never had figured out what they're doing. But I played basketball when I was going to school, and we didn't have a baseball team or didn't have a football team. But played basketball and tennis.
What position were you on the basketball team?
Center.
You're the tallest.
Yeah.
Did you ever do the hook like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
No. I didn't do things like that. No, it's just a small town basketball team. We didn't have enough to play football.
What do you look forward to?
You really want to know?
Yeah.
Dying.
Why dying?
As long as I'm not going to cause it, but I'm not going to fight it either. In fact, I went to my doctor. I got a new doctor, and I was in there last time I see her. She said, I need to ask you a question. She said, on your record, you don't say what to do on resuscitation. I said, okay, I'll tell you. Don't do anything. She said, you mean if you fall on the floor, I can't give you resuscitation? I said, that's what I said. I said, just call the funeral home. And I said, yeah, I don't want to cause it, but I'm not fighting it.
Why is that an enticing future?
Huh?
Why is that your goal?
Well, I talk to Joyce every night.
Yeah.
And I'll be in the same place with her.
As you get a little composure, I'll tell you a little story. My great grandmother got married pretty young, and in 1928, she was the mom of a 1.5-year-old, and her husband, my great grandfather, got appendicitis, and he ended up dying. And my great grandmother would go on to raise her daughter, and she had an 8th grade education, and she had one good eye. I didn't know about the eye till I was, 10, 15 years after she passed away. She did all kinds of things. She was a nurse. Actually, for a few years, she farmed with her father-in-law, until the Great Depression got so severe that she needed to go do something different. She was a nurse and would stay in people's homes and help them nurse, and she did all kinds of things. She didn't get remarried till 1980. She was 80 years old. She decided to get remarried, and she had 10 good years. It was her longest marriage. After she had passed away, I had some time. I was with my grandfather, and I said, why do you think she waited till she was 80 to get remarried? And he looked at me and he said, I think she just loved George that much that she couldn't imagine getting married to somebody else.
Yeah.
But she finally did. But,
I'll agree with her.
yeah. I think your love for Joyce is really visible and profound. Did the two of you have a favorite song?
Lord of the Dance, number 261, the hymnal. And that's a funny story on that. Back 15, 20 years ago, Don Wessel had the Oldsmobile here. And that was their theme song. And you'd hear it on the news at 10 o'clock at night and go to bed, and it just keep going through your head.
Yeah.
And it's an old Quaker hymn.
It is. Yeah.
But I like Bill Gaither's bunch because most of that I know.
Uh-huh.
And what I hear now on the radio, I can't understand what they're talking about because I don't know the words they're saying. And it's not music, it's just there.
Okay. Did you and Joyce have a favorite verse?
It's amazing. Her favorite songs was the two Mary sang at Louise Shepherd's funeral.
Oh, really? Is that Great Is Thy Faithfulness? Was that one of them?
I was there on the Sparrow was one of them.
Yeah.
And I forgot what the other one was. But of course, Joyce was in the room with Louise at the nursing home.
Uh-huh.
I thought that's quite odd. But
it is. As you think about your grandkids, your great-grandkids?
I've got the oldest grandkid son and just got his CEO now of the sound company in Cedar Rapids. And what they do, they set up a sound system for concerts. And then they're also getting quite a bit of work out of Las Vegas, do the conventions out there. And he'll go out there and spend a week and have everything set up and control the sound. Well, 2 weeks ago, the guy that owned the companies is retiring. So that's what he's doing now. And then the other grandson, he's got so many things going, you don't know what he's going to do. He was a minister, a youth minister in Cedar Rapids, in Marion. And then he went to work for a truck line in Iowa City. And then he quit. And one of his buddies that he went to school with was in San Diego working for Sony on video games. So he kept after him. So he finally went to work for Sony. And they was working on a baseball game. And they wanted to get it out just before the World Series in 2019. Well, they got it out just before the World Series, and the pandemic hit. And it went crazy. And so he moved to San Diego, and lived out there 2 years. He got 4 kids. He he got a new boss, a lady, and he said, I'm going to have to quit. So this rest is eating me up. She said, aren't you working from home? He said, yeah. I said, well, home's in Iowa. You're still working. So he moved back to Iowa and working for Sony. And he does videos for advertising. And he's also a painter or an artist. He takes pictures and paints over them and all this stuff. And it's just something else. And then I've got the 2 in Springfield, which one of them is not doing anything right now. And then Taylor, which is working at the car wash, his daughter that's going to be christened.
Mm-hmm.
And Kathy's spent 10 years over here in preschool. That's my daughter. But other than that, that's about it.
Well, Bill, thanks for coming in and sharing your story with us. You are a fantastic guy.
Well, thank you.
And you always find ways to poke fun with us and give us good holy grief.
Well, I think he asked for it. If it wasn't for Jim Mason and you, I wouldn't have any fun coming up here.
Yeah, I know. Thanks for sharing your heart and your love for Joyce, and pray that the Lord hears your prayer in such a way that your family is ready to let you go, and you're ready to go. And it's a beautiful thing. You know, John Wesley said, "Methodists die well."
Yeah.
So may that be your marching orders.
No, I'm not going to cause it, but I'm not going to fight it.
Yep, I hear that. May the Lord bless you in that prayer.
Anytime.
Anytime. All right. Thanks, folks, for listening.
Thank you.
A big thank you to Bill for sharing his story. In listening to Bill, I hope that you were inspired, encouraged, and challenged, and that you begin to behold the really cool people who are around you. The Really Cool People podcast is produced by Schweitzer Church, Springfield, Missouri. Taylor Likes is the executive producer and editor, and I'm your host, Jason Leininger. You can help us by liking, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. Until next time, stay cool.